If your anime faces look like a potato, then here are some quick tips that will help you improve your anime faces. So first we want to simplify, and I know you've probably heard it a million times and maybe you still don't know how to actually do this, so let me explain. So pretty much we want to break every single part of an anime face into basic shapes. For example, the head can be drawn as a simple ball or an egg, and then we just attach a simple jawline like this that can be just basically 4 lines, and here you can see a simple ball. From side view there would be an egg, and here also some egg in perspective, same as here. And then obviously a super simple jawline. It can be even something like this, boom, boom, and boom, same as here. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines here and here. But obviously we can also simplify things like facial features. So for example, eyes can be drawn as a simple 2 lines up top, as you see here, boom, and 2 at the bottom, as you can see here. From side view we can even just do 1 here and 1 here, and then just here the eyeball inside. Even from like a more 3/4 view, we have 2 lines here and even 1 line here, or just still divided into 2. And even hair can be simplified. So for hair, what I usually do, I just start with a simple outline of the hair. So for example, here we could just do something like this, boom, boom. Here we have one part, and then the ponytails on the sides would be next part. But here, don't just use these like wiggle lines, just use straight lines, boom, and just break everything like I'm doing right now. Obviously this would be even simplified like this, boom, boom, and same here, boom. You don't need as many details in the beginning. Pretty much just work from big shapes to smaller shapes, like here. And also, if you want my brushes, that are for free in the description below, and with them you'll get 30 art tips that will help you improve your art in 30 days. So now let's go to proportions, and I always instantly just divide the head with 2 lines. So when we have this simple shape like here, I just divide it straight, vertical, and then horizontal. And now the horizontal line would be perfectly in the middle, and then just a little bit up below that I would put an eye line. So here I would put my eyes, so same here. So top of the face, chin, boom, middle would be somewhere here, and then a little bit below that we have our eyes here. So top of the face, a little bit volume of the hair, boom, straight line like this, then middle would be probably somewhere here, boom, and then a little bit below that we have our eye line, and above that we have eyebrows. Also, if we have our simplified head shape, then I would go from the middle line in between the chin and this eyebrow line, boom, and in the middle we have our nose, and then obviously in the middle of nose and chin, a little bit around here we would have our lips. So nose, boom, middle somewhere here, and here we have also our lips. But try to place the bottom of the lips at around here. And also a quick tip, I used to really struggle with placing the eye. I didn't know if it should be somewhere around here, I don't know, maybe here. So a good tip is to just take the length of the eye and put it here, around, something like this, boom. And we have 1 and 1, boom, boom. And also with placing the neck here, this part here, we can just go straight line down, and around here we can place our neck. So something like this, boom. From 3/4 view or some perspective like this, I just like to put the neck around here, this corner of the eye. Now going to how to actually make anime faces more appealing. For that we can use 2 things. First, we want to avoid putting as much details. As you can see here, these faces aren't very detailed, and to do that we can just simplify everything. So for example, here we see that the nose is just 2 lines and 1 line for the nose hole. So here we have 1 nose, boom, same here, even like 2 holes and a little bit shadow shape here. Even here, just 1 line and another shadow here. Mouth can be as a simple line drawn. Here we have a little bit more details, so we have a little bit more gradient here, but also nose is very simple, boom, and shadow shape. Even here, boom, 2 lines, shadow shape, and a nose hole. Now for eyes we can do much more, because in eyes we actually want to leave a lot of details to make them a focal point. For example, we can do here one thing, that is erase the corners. Here we don't have corners. Here, 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 and a little bit here. Boom. Same as here and here. You can see also here, there is no corners, just blend it with the skin. And even same here, boom, boom. And even here, boom, and boom. We don't even have here a lower eyelid. We just have some eyelashes. So we can either just remove the whole lower eyelid and just leave eyelashes, or just erase the corners, boom. And another thing that can help us make more appealing faces are thirds of the face. So pretty much we can just play with the proportion of them. So here would be our 3/3, and we can do just 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. Or we could just play with the proportions and make some bigger, some medium, and some smaller. We can also apply this rule to facial features. For example, here we have our eyes are pretty big, nose is medium, and lips are very small. And this can add real quick a lot of appeal to your drawings. Now, the next tip is about colors. And here we need to actually pay attention or think about a couple of things. So how strong the light is, what bounce light we have. Also, if we have a harder or softer light, just think about the scene and colors around your characters. Or you have just pure white, then you don't really have to think much. Just add this whiter tint to your character, this something, boom, to make it softer. But actually one thing that I really like is choosing a cool and warm color combo. For example, here we see that we have a lighter and warmer skin tone, and the shadows are pretty cold or cool, and it just gives this nice contrast. For example, here we have a cooler shadows, and now we have warmer shadows. And actually one thing to actually make this much cooler is an overlay layer, a highly saturated bright orange color, and then just paint on this transition like this. Obviously it doesn't look realistic, but what it gives you is a subsurface scattering. So pretty much it's just this glow here that is very nice and appealing. Well, here and here. Obviously this one is too strong, so we can actually lower this a little bit, and now it looks better. So think of the colors and add them to your drawings as a bounce light or how harsh or soft the light will be. So actually softer light will actually diffuse more, so we will have softer shadows as the result. Boom. But also one thing that we can do is add a little bit of color variety. So pretty much we can just break the face into thirds again, so pretty strong. And so we have 1/3 from nose to chin, then to eyebrows from nose, and then forehead. Boom. And here what we want to do is just add a little bit of color variety. For example, we can just pick like a multiply layer, just pick a skin tone, make it a little bit more saturated and reddish or oranges, depends on what you want, and then just paint the middle portion. Do the same for the top one. Here we cannot really see, but just move here. We just pick the skin color, move it towards yellows and maybe a little bit more saturated, and paint it here. Obviously erase this, boom, with a little bit more yellower tint, maybe even more, something like this, and boom. And bottom, we can either just make it cooler, so pick like a cooler color and then paint it, or just leave it as it is, because the middle warmer color will actually make this look cooler. Now let's go to line art and sketches. So obviously here we have a couple of things. We can either just do like a cleaner line art, boom. Also, these are my really older drawings, but yeah, now I just prefer doing sketches, a little bit messy sketches, but actually how can we just improve our sketches? So the big thing that can actually improve our sketches or our line art is just the line quality, and how we can improve the line quality. So one thing is to do warm up. So we want to actually fill the whole canvas with circles, boom, boom, just fill the whole canvas. You can just also do your ovals and change the size of them, so don't make all the same circles like this, boom. Then we just want to do a quick dot and shoot straight lines from it, boom. And then as you go to the end, you can do a spiral like this. Next, just place a lot of random dots, boom, 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 and then just connect them using a straight line, and don't overshoot it. Just go, boom, try to go into that one, and try to also make like more straight lines, boom. And then what we can do is just some either CSI or gestures, quick ones. So CSI, just place curves that look like C's, S's, booms, and I's, boom, like that. And these 5 minutes should really improve your drawings. But now for actually placing the line art, we can just either use like a super hard brush, like here, with pen pressure for brush size, so we can have thicker and thinner strokes. And same we can do just for the sketches. So pretty much here we have this brush that is softer and more sketchy with this texture, boom. That's what I used here. So I just make some lines thicker and some thinner. And also one thing that you can do is the lines that are outside of your character, you can make them really thick. Okay, so you can make them really thick, something like this. And then lines in the middle of the character, like these, the filler ones, like these can be really soft, and it just creates a nice contrast of, you know, harder outside and softer inside, as you can see here and also here, boom. And next we can just add some ambient occlusion. So pretty much these are just like shadows in between things, like in between hair, so here, between this, here, just where the light has harder times getting in, like here, boom. And this is actually great for T-lines. So if we have like T-lines, like for example here, boom, boom, we can just thicker this side here from one side. Don't do this, just one. And that's what I was doing actually in these drawings. For example, wherever can we see, just here, boom, just take this here, boom. So this is above this one, so there will be shadows here, boom, or even here, boom, we have a little bit shadow here, boom. Also in this here, there's actually a lot of these. So for example, here we have some crevices here, boom, and even in navel. But also a game changer thing that you can actually try for yourself when you actually place your line art and it's too thick, we can just take our liquify tool, boom, change it to shrink, go and shrink it like this, boom. And it works pretty nice. So it's pretty nice and useful when you already place your line art or sketches. But also I like to leave my sketches in my drawings. So for example, sometimes the sketch can actually look a little bit like out of place, like too dark or something. So we can actually just alpha lock the sketch layer here, choose like a more color that is around, make it a little bit darker, maybe change the hue a bit and then paint it so it's just softer and it matches the whole drawing better. For example, we can even do this for the eyes. So just alpha lock it, pick this color here. Even you can just pick an airbrush and then just make it a little bit more saturated and darker and just paint it around the corners, like here, boom, same here, boom. And it just matches better the character. And now let's go to rendering. So when it comes to rendering anime faces, I just prefer to keep it super simple. So this is my usual art style and you see that there's a lot of details. For example, we have like highlights, like ambient occlusion, some harder shadows, boom, boom, like some smaller lights, some bounce light again. And anime art style is just simple. So light, boom, shadow, boom, and just a little bit of color variety and even a lot of like darker parts, but not much. Same here, we just have like a gradient coming from below that lights here a couple of things, boom, and that's it. Even here, just almost like a one color with some noise and color variety and super simple, and also looks much better. Same for hair. So for example, hair actually look pretty detailed, but if we zoom in like on these or these, there's not much going on other than here we have like more details everywhere. This looks more like hair. And here we have like super simple. So let me show you how to actually render these. So here just take the highlight color, make it a little bit lighter, maybe something like this, and just paint a blob like this. If you just drawing the whole highlights, you just go around the hair, and also you don't go with the hair, you go against it. So this is like that. Okay, so it would be something like this, boom. But we can actually make it a little bit lighter and something like this, boom. So we have our light here. So just now pick an eraser. I like using this with a little bit of texture and just go and erase, boom. We go here one and then from bottom, boom. And we already see that we have a simple texture. So then we go with a smaller brush, paint some more like this, boom. And then we go with a smaller eraser. So again, boom, something like this. That, boom, boom, just erase and paint, and we have it. Now we can also just make it now a super small eraser and just add a little bit of like random, not really random, but just these cuts, boom. It just looks more detailed, same as here. Now the color doesn't. So for example, here you can also see these cuts, boom. So here, like some smaller here, boom. And you can actually go much further than this and you can just make it even smaller. Brush, go like this, boom. But this is like more realistic art style. So this is what I do for main one. You can see that it goes much more everywhere, boom. And it looks like realistic hair. Also, other thing that I actually like to use a lot in all of my drawings are layer modes. So here one thing that you can do is just pick like a color from your scene and just choose a layer like color dodge, glow dodge, add glow overlay or hard light. Let's see how this looks, boom. We can just add a little bit of color. You see that actually it's much better. We can actually show the silhouette better, boom. Boost some colors, make it, obviously it would be a little bit too much, but you see, same here, we can just pick this color and make the lights stronger from this side, boom. I like to put it where we have like openings. So for example, here behind this we have like light, so I like to actually boost it. Same here, I would probably pick like a warmer, lighter color and just go here around it, but don't overdo it. You can easily lose edges, like I actually did here. You see that the highlights actually blending with the background, so don't do that. And as I said before, you can use an overlay layer for adding these, as you see, subsurface scattering. So here, that would be actually maybe on here even, boom, like adding it here, and here, boom. And lastly, let's just quickly go to perspective. So here, whenever drawing anime faces from perspective, we want to pay attention to a couple of things. So one is obviously the thirds of the face. So for example, here in different angles, we'll have different proportions. Now from chin to the nose, we see that this is super big. Then from nose to eyebrows, we have like a medium shape, boom, like a medium size. And then to forehead, we have small. Same here, boom, smaller forehead, a medium middle, and then bigger chin, boom. Now, for example, whenever we look from above, so this would be like more above angle, we have a bigger forehead, boom, like a middle, like a medium middle, and then a smaller bottom. So also you can see that here the nose is actually going closer to the eyes, and even tip of the nose going past the eye line. For example, here we see that it's almost touching, and from the bottom we see that the nose actually would be something like this, but this is pretty old, boom. So this would be actually closer to mouth rather than eyes. Then we obviously have ears, which are super important when you want to show some angles. So from below, the ears would be below the eye line, like see here, boom, somewhere here, below. Even here we have eye line like this, then ears like this, if the perspective of the face would be something like this. So this would actually go here, and we have our ears here, boom. Now from above looking, we have our eye line, and then ears are above the eye line. So here we would have this, boom, like this, and there we have our mask. And now another thing are shoulders. So from below or just normal angle, the shoulders wouldn't really overlap with the head. So as we can see, the shoulders are here. From this angle, the shoulders would be somewhere like here, boom, one, boom. And now from above angle, we see that the shoulders actually overlap. And if the angle would be like even more from above, it would overlap even more, boom. So something perhaps like this, boom. So just pay attention to these things and proportions. It will help you draw much better faces in perspective overall. Now if you want to learn how to actually draw some anime faces, you can check out my Patreon for monthly tutorials. And now let's just quickly go to recap. So first we start with a simple simplification. So pretty much break every part of your anime face into basic shapes like this. So the head can be just a ball or an egg with a simple jaw shape. So we can either do like a muzzle of the cat here, so boom, 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 or just like shape like this, boom, for a jaw. Now, when it comes to proportions, I like to put my eyes below the middle of the face. So let's say this is top, this is bottom, then the middle would be somewhere around here, and below that we have our eyes. Same as here, so eye line here, boom, top of the face, top of the head would be a little bit here, boom, middle would be around here, boom. Then obviously between the middle and the bottom we have our nose line, boom. Same here, boom, boom, and middle here. And then between nose and chin, a little bit below, we have the bottom of the lips. And obviously try to fit one eye between the both eyes. Now to make the character more appealing, use things like small, medium, big. So pretty much vary the sizes of your facial proportions of the thirds or just facial features. And you can make some bigger, some medium, and some smaller, like here, bigger eyes, medium nose, and smaller lips. Now when choosing a color for your characters and your lighting, just think about the whole scene. So how hard or soft the light is, what are the colors in your scene, a bounce light even, and then just add a little bit of color variety. So divide the face into thirds, the middle make more warmer oranges, reddish color, the bottom more yellower, and the bottom cooler. Now for line art, you can have either just messy sketches or full polished line art. Also add ambient occlusion like I did here, boom, here, and use T-lines to show overlap. So here, here, even here, boom. And now for rendering anime faces, less is more. So it is much better to have like more simplified shading rather than just full blown render with really small details. Yeah. And then to draw faces in perspective, change the proportions of the thirds again and use things like ears to show the perspective or even a shoulder, so the overlap of it. But there can be actually one thing that is ruining your anime faces, and if you want to learn more about it, just watch this video here when I show you some common anime drawing mistakes and how to actually fix them. So bye.